guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm very excited to share with you finally the video about my birth story. And on my previous video, which was a kind of a birth update and catch up with regards to what had happened for the period that I wasn't filming, I promised you guys that I'm going to release a birth video. So this is here now, the video with regards to my cesarean section, which is the way that I delivered my baby girl. For those of you who are new here on the channel, welcome. My name is Dani and I am filming videos about living with my chronic condition, which is called hydrocephalus, and what life with that condition is about. So most recently I had a baby. She's the most beautiful baby girl in the world. She's only 2 months old. So this is something that I wanted to discuss on my channel and let you know how this happened and how I gave birth to my baby girl. So first things first, I was, as you know, and I have said this on numerous occasions on my channel, I have been told that I would need to deliver via a C-section from the very beginning that I was diagnosed. And just to make sure that this is something that I want to make clear, this is what happens where I live. So this is what happens in my geography. This is what happens in Bulgaria. People who have hydrocephalus and are pregnant are kind of prompted to deliver via a planned C-section because it's considered safer for the mother due to the elevated pressure on the brain during the active labor bit of labor, when the mother is encouraged to push. Such pushing can further increase the pressure on the brain, and this could be potentially damaging and it could be dangerous. So with this regard, I was informed that I would need to deliver via a planned C-section, and this was my thought process from the very beginning, from when I found out I was pregnant. When I was 34 weeks pregnant, I went to a pre-birth consultation with my obstetrician and a midwife, and this is where we discussed my situation. We discussed how things would be and how the birth would proceed. And this is when we went over what had happened on my shunt implantation surgery, where my shunt is and all that stuff. So then I was kind of informed by them what would happen on the day of my C-section, when I would need to go in hospital, that I'll have a consultation with an anesthesiologist and a neurosurgeon as well on the same day, and any prerequisites for my C-section. So that was at week 34, and my planned C-section was planned for week 39. So exactly on the day I was supposed to be week 39, which is the 19th of August. I was instructed to go in 1 day earlier, so on the Thursday, the 18th of August, because planned C-section starts really, can start really early in the morning, and if you're scheduled for a really early delivery, then you would need to stay in the hospital the previous night as well. On the 11th of August, which was like a week before I had to go in hospital, I started having contractions, and I was having them quite consistently for a couple of hours or so. They were every 5-6 minutes, and they were quite regular for quite a long period of time. And I said to my husband, we need to go to the hospital. So if I was in labor, I would have to go through an emergency C-section. So I needed to know whether or not I was in labor or not. So we took off and went to the hospital, and the lady there, first thing she did was check my baby's heartbeat. So they, plugged me into the machine. And then she checked if I was dilated or not. So I wasn't dilated at all, and my contractions by that time were kind of getting less regular, and they were getting really scarce as well. So they told me that I wasn't in labor and discharged me, but the lady at the hospital generally advised against travel for that period, and for the period from that day up until the day of my planned C-section, just in case labor started at that time. And she was advised that we stay close to the hospital, and if I felt anything different, I would go back in. I also started having this really weird symptom, which is like a rash on my hands and feet, which was really, really itchy, and it was getting worse at night. So that was something that was very uncomfortable, but it seems that this is something that can happen to quite a lot of pregnant people. So this is something that can happen and unfortunately there's nothing you can do. The only way that it is alleviated or really resolved in some way is labor. So basically I had to, for the last week, so I waited until the 18th, until the day that I had to go into hospital. So when I went in on the 18th of August, I had a blood pressure check, ECG. I was again checked for any dilation. The baby stones were monitored as well. And then I was introduced to my anesthesiologist, and I was introduced to a neurosurgeon for a brief consultation before my C-section. And then I was told that my C-section was planned for 1:30 p.m. the next afternoon. So I didn't really have to go in hospital that early, so I could have gone in the next day. But this is something that I did not know up to that point. And then they instructed me that after 4 p.m. on the same day I shouldn't be eating anything, and I should only be drinking water and not very much of it. So it's actually the next day. Yesterday while I was filming, baby girl woke up, and then we went for a walk, and then they kind of rolled, which is a part of the reality of being a new parent, and which is something that I like very much about being a new mom, because it's like every day is different, and there is this exciting feeling of what's going to happen today. With a baby, you have to be flexible, and this is one of the greatest things that babies actually teach you, that you have to be flexible and kind of take it day by day, because every day is different. So yeah, so today is the next day, and I was allowed to have lunch on that day. So they did give me food, and then my last kind of meal was a cup of yogurt at about 4 p.m. and then from then on I wasn't allowed to eat anything because of the anesthesia for my C-section. A nurse came in, which turned out to be the nurse that was supposed to take the blood for the stem cells collection. And as I told you in my previous video, we did collect stem cells from the umbilical cord. So we did collect both blood and tissue, and the tissue is actually a piece of the umbilical cord itself, which is kind of cut at birth, and it's about 15 centimeters in our case. The piece of the umbilical cord was about 15 centimeters in length, which is preserved, as well as the blood that we drew, that nurse drew from the umbilical cord during the C-section. So basically the nurse came in, she interviewed me, she asked some questions with regards to any illness, any genetic predispositions that I was aware I had or didn't have, any type of hereditary illness like blood pressure, high blood pressure, or diabetes, or anything like that. So it was quite an extensive interview actually, because beforehand, when we were signing the contract for the stem cells collection procedure, I had to kind of fill in this form, which had a very long questionnaire with regards to conditions that kind of did not allow for the procedure to take place. And first of all, they let you know that they will run tests on the blood and tissue samples in order for them to confirm whether or not they are suitable to be preserved, if they're okay, if they are kind of up to the standards and regulations. And there are some conditions which do not allow for stem cell collection and preservation. In one of the tissue banks, they would not allow for stem cells from tissue, like the umbilical cord itself, to be preserved if one of the parents had MS. And my husband has MS, so basically they wouldn't allow for that sample to be preserved. However, in the tissue bank that we used, in the end, they did allow for both tissue and blood samples to be collected and preserved. And then, of course, we decided to go with that one. So the nurse again went through the questionnaire that I had already completed, kind of double check and to see if something had changed, because like some infectious diseases are already also included in that questionnaire, and it is something that you can actually develop. You can catch COVID, because COVID was a part of the questionnaire now. So she came in the morning, about 2 or 3 hours before my scheduled C-section, so about 9-10 in the morning. And then it turned out that my C-section was actually not planned for 1:30 p.m. as I was told the previous day, but for 11:30 p.m. and there was just a mistake. So they kind of rushed me in preparation, because prior to C-section you need to have some infusions done in order to compensate for any type of, you know, blood loss. So I hadn't been drinking any water or eating anything since, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 p.m. on the previous day. And then that infusion, which was really fast, it made me pee right away. Like, I really needed to go pee. So after that, they asked me to go into the operating theater. I was asked to sit on that table with my back towards the anesthesiologist, and she kind of probed between my vertebrae to see where the best position would be for the anesthesia to be placed. And she went in and probed with the needle once, but she was not satisfied with, you know, what she had done. So basically she then pulled the needle out and moved it a little so that she could kind of get a better access to where she wanted to access. That was actually the most uncomfortable part of the whole procedure, because after she kind of placed the anesthesia finally, it all happened so fast. Like, they told me to quickly lean back and lie down because my legs started going numb right away. If I had delayed a little, I wouldn't have been able to pull my legs up and lay them on the table, because the anesthetic just kicked in so quickly. And then I put my legs on the table and that was it. I just couldn't feel them anymore. So they kind of tied them with some belts, and then they pulled in this screen in front of me, which was like a piece of fabric, so that I wouldn't see what's happening from my breasts down, basically. Then my doctor came, who was going to execute the surgery. He was the doctor that kind of monitored my entire pregnancy, and I was happy to be also giving birth with him. So he came when I was ready for surgery. He greeted me. He said that he was very happy to be with me on this day. And then the whole surgery started, but I did not feel anything. Like, I did not feel incisions. I did not feel him touching me, because I spoke to some of my girlfriends who have already had C-sections, and they said that they did not feel any pain, but they could feel like touch or pull or push or something like that. I couldn't feel anything. Like, I did not feel a thing. The only thing I felt was kind of a kind of a pulling feeling, which was when they basically extracted the placenta. That was the only feeling I had. But basically, when they pulled the baby, I did not feel anything. The incision, I did not feel anything. My doctor was, you know, talking with the rest of the doctors. I was talking to the anesthesiologist. She was really nice. She was sitting right behind me by my head, and she was talking to me constantly, making sure that I was fine, you know, that I was still conscious, that I was doing well. And the moment that I heard my baby cry, that was like the most emotional moment ever. I started crying right away as well. I just could not withhold my tears. They just started dripping, and the anesthesiologist just got up from her place and went to take a photo right away. So she took a picture and then she showed it to me. They just showed her to me, and then they took her to kind of get her cleaned and, you know, place her in her cot, which is, you know, this kind of cot where they have like oxygen caps on top, where they kind of put the oxygen inside the cot so that the baby can inhale more oxygen at that point. And they said that this is something that they do with all of the kind of C-section delivered babies, but my baby was just fine. She did not have any respiratory distress. She was just, you know, she was crying. I could hear her cry, and the anesthesiologist said as well, it's your baby that's crying. Oh, by the way, the nurse that was collecting the stem cells was there as well. So when they took the baby out, they then cut the umbilical cord and took the samples for the stem cells, the blood draw, and the piece of tissue, the piece of the umbilical cord that was going to be preserved. And the nurse came in to show me. She was like, see, this is how much blood we collected, this is a piece of umbilical cord that we're going to be preserved, that's fine. My doctor said that, you know, it was all done, and he started to put in the stitches. So once that I was, you know, stitched up and everything was okay, they put down the screen that was kind of, you know, covering me up, and then they transferred me to a wheel bed so that they could transfer me to my hospital room. And then they brought my baby girl with me. They, you know, for some initial skin to skin, which was very nice, but then they took her in the baby room because I wasn't able to do anything, and because of COVID no one was really allowed, so my husband wasn't allowed with me, and you know, I couldn't take care of her for the first hours until my legs were kind of, you know, released from the anesthesia, and I was able to kind of walk around and start, you know, being able to take care of her. So I didn't feel anything during the surgery. The doctors were really nice. They were constantly in conversation with me, asking me how I was, if everything was going fine. And you know, just the experience was very straightforward, very linear. There was no, you know, urgency, thank God. There was no issue with the whole operation. I just really felt safe, and I think that, you know, that's really important for any woman giving birth, no matter if it's via C-section or vaginal birth, for a woman to feel safe, because this is just such an emotional moment, and it's both physically and emotionally draining, and it can be really traumatizing if a woman is not feeling okay or safe, or is not trusting the people. You're trusting your baby with those people, you're trusting yourself, you're trusting basically your entire world to those people. So I can say for myself that I had a very positive experience and everything was fine. During my stay in the hospital, during the whole 4 days after my surgery, the baby was with me the entire time. During the day though, they took the babies at night and brought them every morning, so that we could both kind of start getting used to each other, and I could start getting used to life with the baby. You know, we could really experience this bonding, because those first few days were just amazing. They were basically pure bonding. So that's it with regards to my birth experience. This is, you know, the story, my C-section story, and everything that happened during my hospital stay and my delivery process. There was no issue with regards to my hydrocephalus. I was told by my doctor that he could see where the shunt was. Basically, what was different with me was that usually the doctors place antibiotics before the C-section itself, just to make sure that the area they're working on is not infected by any kind of you know, bug. And usually after that there is no antibiotics prescribed and distributed to patients. But in my case, because I have the end of my shunt in my right behind my uterus, it was very important for no infection to occur. So they prescribed me antibiotic, which I took, which they placed intravenously for the entire stay while I was in hospital. And then I had to take an antibiotic tablet for another 3 days after I was released from hospital. That antibiotic was not something that was, you know, stopping me from breastfeeding. It was compatible with breastfeeding, so that was fine. And then at some point we were I just stopped it because they told me that that was okay. I did have a complication though that was kind of more down the road one. It was more of a recovery complication, which has nothing to do with my hydrocephalus. It was just something to do with my uterus. I am going to film a separate video about that, because that was kind of it's a long story first of all, and then it's, you know, just a separate story, because it kind of made me, it was the reason that I stopped breastfeeding, and just as a whole I think that it deserves a separate video. So with that being said, that was my birth story of a C-section delivery with hydrocephalus. If you have any questions with regards to how it went, please let me know in the comment section below. I read your comments and I try to answer every one of them. And also you can reach out via Instagram as well. I'm going to try try and respond to all of your messages. I really do. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.